complaining about Crouton.
All right, we're live. Everyone, welcome to Practical Chrome 31. Today is July 22nd, I believe. Something like that. Yep, 22nd, 2014. Again, this is episode 31. And of course, we want to thank our sponsors. The Effective Group is our first sponsor this evening. We actually have two. The Effective Group, do you need a fantastic website that not only looks great on mobiles and tablets, but also gets you selling online? Then Effective Group is the company for you. To find out more about Effective Group, visit their portfolio and read about their successes. Visit effective-group.com. Also sponsored by Coinbase. Coinbase is an international digital wallet that allows you to securely buy, use, and accept Bitcoin currency. Coinbase is Bitcoin safe and easy. Visit them today through our referral link to help the show. Visit coinbase.practicalchrome.com. Of course, everyone, thanks for coming to the show. We are a little bit late here on this episode of Practical Chrome because I'm having some technical difficulties. I might actually drop off a few times here and there, but I'll come back as best I can. I'm also not able to show my screen to everyone watching the Hangout on air. I do apologize about that. So you won't be able to see all the good stuff, like the effective-group.com website and, of course, the Coinbase website. But you can see it behind me if you're looking at the big screen. But again, welcome everybody to the show. Of course, this is Practical Chrome, the show dedicated to everything Chrome, Chrome OS, Chromebox, Chrome base, Chrome browser on every single thing it can attach itself to. And of course, my co-hosts, James Walbus and Craig Tumbleson. Craig, are you having a better night than me?
I am, John, and part of it's being here with you, John.
Exactly. And by the way, Craig's sexy voice is brought to you by a Snowball microphone, which I think sounds fantastic, by the way, which is awesome. He's the first one to get credible podcasting gear, which is nice. James, how about you, sir? How are you doing this evening with your Google hat?
Doing pretty good, John.
Awesome. And of course, we've all come together again on this Tuesday evening at 10:10, or this evening much later, more like 10:20. Again, I do apologize about the lateness. We're coming together because of the fact that we're going to look into croutons and Bitcoin. Actually, just crouton, not really croutons, but you could say croutons. I'll get to that later. And also Bitcoin, because when it comes to Crouton, a few brave tech-savvy folks have installed another distribution of Linux next to their Chrome OS. But why? So what we're doing is in this first two-part episode, we're going to go over the details of what, why, and how users install another Linux on their Chromebooks. We'll go over the steps that we're going to follow before returning next week, and then to report to you on how it works, how people are getting this done. So, and then also in the news, we're going to go for some news. In the news, of course, we have Dell is taking Bitcoins for computer purchases, and so are we. So we're going to get into that a little bit more. But I can tell you what, it's been a great week for me. It's been really busy. And gentlemen, I know that you guys have had some interesting weeks. And you know what we're going to do is we're going to kick this off by starting off the news. But with our new kind of segment, what we're going to do is we are going to do, because we now have two sponsors, we're going to do a news sponsor, and then we're going to do a main sponsor. So when we get into the main, we're going to talk about Coinbase, and right now that we're going to talk about our first sponsor for the evening, and that is, of course, the Effective Group. Now, you might be saying, what is the Effective Group? What are they all about? Well, if you look behind me on the screen, if you're watching the video, you can see their website, and basically, this group has been together for quite some time, 15 years actually. And they're based in the UK, and what they work with is they work with getting customers online. So that's what the Effective Group is they're a team of individuals that work with you personally, and they get either your merchant or yourself online so that you can generate revenue, right? They don't use any tricky jargon, just straightforward advice and guidance, as well as also building the tools that you'll need to continue and maintain a presence online, whether that be through social media, through advertisements, search engine optimization. They walk you through every single piece and then can get you online really quickly. So definitely check them out. Now, again, their website is www.effective-group.com. They're based in the UK, but they can work with anyone in the world. because the internet's going to connect everyone in the world, so they can just simply make your website wherever you need it to be, and they can work with you on that. And again, it's going to be a personalized service for you. Definitely check out their website, check out their portfolio, and read about their successes by visiting them at effective-group.com. And thanks again to the Effective Group for sponsoring the show. It's been awesome. All right, gentlemen. Craig, the news. Has it been busy this week or just light? What do you think? I want to know your impression of the news this week.
I think it's been light for the average user, with the exception of milestone 36 hitting the stable channel for Chrome OS. But other than a couple new features, I think it's been a pretty light week.
I concur. James, when it comes to Chrome news, it has been kind of light, but like Craig said, we had the release, and we've also had some other things pop up. What are your impressions of the news cycle for Chrome? Is like us monitoring it this closely worth it? Is there enough news popping out?
I want to talk to you about that, John. I'm thinking about quitting the show. I just don't think there's enough news to talk about every week. No, that's silly. We've had weeks where we have so much news we can't even talk about it all. So it's a little bit slow, but there's some good stuff in there. Chrome updating. Sometimes you never really notice it. It's just another, 34 to 35, whatever. But this update actually has a couple important things that people notice, so that's kind of exciting.
Exactly, I totally agree. What we're gonna do is let's jump into that, just so we can get all that awesomeness to going here. So what we're talking about, and what Craig and James have mentioned, is the fact that we're up to 36. Of course, my news link is 37 beta, which is funny. I don't actually have a link for 36. That's terrible. I'm doing well this evening, everybody. It's my day to shine, and it's not working out. Craig, what's going on with 36?
36 hit the stable channel yesterday, I believe, and it brought a couple new features. Nothing too earth-shattering, but just the little couple things that you expect from a Chrome OS stable channel update. Included in the list is you can launch Google Now by saying OK Google from the Chrome OS launcher, and it just activated. It's very responsive. There's been a few changes to, security improvements, obviously. There was a note that touch-based devices now have pinch-to-zoom support, which I have to say on my Acer C720P is lovely. It does work extremely well. It's very smooth. There's no delay or lag. I would even say it works a little bit better than the pinch-to-zoom on my Android devices. It really is smooth.
Nice.
But other than that, nothing major. We'll put a link to the changelog in the show notes.
Excellent, excellent. Now, James, I'm gonna throw it to you for 37 beta. Have you seen the images that they've got up there right now? But when 36 is awesome and that's stable. But what about the cool stuff with beta? They're adding a couple of things like the fetch tag, things like that. And they're doing the direct write change, which if you check the link, there's gonna be an image there that makes everything much more sharp. When you look at the text, it's crazy that it's one of those bonuses of having a Chrome OS device or Chrome browser and being on the beta channel. Did you get a look at that, James, by any chance?
I did, yeah. As usual, I didn't understand most of it, but the direct write thing is pretty cool. It's something that has been requested for a while, and if you read the blog and all the comments, it has made a lot of people very happy. The first to comment not the first, but the last comment there is Kevin Tolfel. We had him on the show a while ago, and he pointed out, how there's much rejoicing, and everybody after that, it's just, this is a feature that everybody's wanted for a long time, and it's finally here. The picture, I had to kind of pinch to zoom to really notice the difference, but there is a difference. With the direct write, it is the text is clearer, it's a little more crisp, and it's going to make reading better. Even if you don't really notice the difference, I think it'll make reading better if you're spending a lot of time on your computer and reading a lot of blogs and whatnot. I think it's going to be better on your eyesight, and so that's one of the exciting changes. The rest of the stuff, like I said, I don't really understand what it's talking about, but that one was pretty exciting for me.
I'm with you there. And then also, Craig, the web cryptography JavaScript API, that's pretty nice. Wouldn't you say, Craig?
Yeah, it's great. I actually hadn't read that article yet, but I am familiar with the API to some extent, and overall, it's going to be a good thing. It allows you to do some hashing and some signatures in the browser using JavaScript that you could. It's going to make it easier for developers. That's the bottom line, and that's never a bad thing.
Totally agree. Cryptography is going to be, it's going to get bigger and bigger as we go forward. And we've talked about that before. Being able to encrypt on the fly, having it native in your browser is going to be something that's going to be incredibly beneficial moving forward. So that is some awesome stuff. Now the Chromecast. We don't talk about Chromecast as much, and I've actually just gotten mine to work because I was on an older router that of course didn't support it, and I have been using the heck out of it with the. So I had that lightning strike last week. I still haven't called Comcast to fix the box, so we've been cable boxless. So Chromecast has been one of the things that we've been relying on. We've even bought some My Little Pony episodes on the Play Store. We have HBO Go because we have Comcast. We subscribe to HBO. So we've been hitting it hard, right? And it's been working flawlessly. It's been great, except for the Wi-Fi issues I'm having right now. Because of the new router that I bought, but I've been relying on heavy. So when it came to the news, I was surprised and happy because I could actually be like, hey, cool, because I've got an app pick as well as as in the news we have a couple different things. Now one is kind of the first one though is the JW Player. And this was actually pointed out to me by Brent Sullivan. He actually sent it to me, letting me know that it had just been released today. That the JW Player, which is used by many websites like ESPN.com and others, it's updating itself, and it's going to have Chromecast support built into it. So that means if the website uses the JW Player, you've got this awesome, you're going to have Chromecast support for that. For that site. So James, I know that you've been definitely hitting it up hard too. Did you I don't know if you got a chance to see that, but it's really cool that the websites include Kickstarter, ESPN. I don't know if they list any others, but basically it's one of the most prolific players out there besides YouTube, and it's going to have Chromecast support built in.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm a little reserved to get too excited about it because I remember a while ago reading about an update that said, hey, there's this new update coming, and pretty much any HTML5 video in the web browser, you'll be able to cast it now. There'll be a little cast button. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I've never once seen that cast button in a video in a website ever. So I'm not really sure if I just read that wrong or what, or if I'm just not looking at the right websites. But given how widely used the JW Player is, I think that I'll probably be seeing some stuff. I do spend a little bit of time on Kickstarter, so it'll be kind of cool to, if I'm, there's one that I backed. It was a Bluetooth paper airplane thing, and you can control it with your phone. It would have been cool to watch those videos because they put some really nice videos together on the big screen instead of my little 11-inch screen. So I think this will be cool if it works. JW Player, like you said, is pretty prolific, so we should be seeing a lot of videos out there that will be easily casted to our Chromecast now.
Exactly. And Craig, did you get a chance to check that out? It's pretty exciting because the fact that the JW Player is taking the opportunity, yeah, that's right, their opportunity, to be able to cast to a very popular device that's available now. There are other devices, but they're adding Chromecast.
They are, and it's a positive thing. The bad news is that it's going to be something that site owners have to manually enable. So it's going to be basically off by default. So don't expect every site that uses JW Player to just get this. They do have to apply the update, and then they have to opt in. So we may see some content providers, maybe ESPN, choose not to use it,
Right.
Which would be a real shame. But given how content creators typically are, there may be some hesitation there. So be excited, because the opportunity will be there, but ultimately we're going to have the same kind of content creator lag as we've seen with some other services. So excited, but not too excited.
Exactly. I'm with you because I saw that about and I thought to myself, ESPN's going to turn off right away because you have to pay to get the channel, right? So they're going to turn it off, because they have to have their own player and all that good stuff, which they do, and they did enable Chromecast, so they wouldn't want to necessarily, unless they're showing clips on their website, in which case they want to be able to, allow you to watch a clip or two. But I don't know if they necessarily turn that on just for Chromecast support. But the other thing in Chromecast, and this was a very, very interesting if you're into this sort of stuff when it comes to hacking, and this is actually from Chrome Story. The Dinson over at chromestory.com, he posts this great video where this engineer developer goes into how he hacked Chromecast, because it's not, you can't like steal someone's data off of it. You're more like you're hacking it to take control of it. And he goes over the really simple steps that it took. Now you do have to be near the person. You have to be able to, you have to. And what he did, of course, is he rickrolled them, right? Right. He even created a little device that would rickroll someone's Chromecast. And it was very funny. He points out where the problems lie, and I think there's a couple of simple fixes he even mentions that Google's probably going to put into an update sooner rather than later, like the fact that if the Chromecast have the ability to just take it out and then you go somewhere else and you plug it in, and it's constantly looking for a host to say, yoo-hoo, family, right? It's looking for that host, and then it'll connect and be set up properly, right? So it's constantly doing that just for that exact reason. So he showed how you can hack it by doing that, by taking over someone's Chromecast. So it was very funny the way that he went over it. But Craig, did you get a chance to watch the video? It was really funny. Did you?
I did. The video is actually from October 2013. So I saw it a while ago when it was first kind of released. The actual news here is that they've built a little self-contained device that makes it easier to do on the go. Just a device specifically designed to hijack a Chromecast and play a Rickroll video. It's just a little tiny box that uses a Raspberry Pi, single purpose. And like they say, the exploit they use isn't a security flaw. It's actually part of the structural design of the Chromecast, kind of the way it connects and takes instructions from your device in that initial setup process. So it's not an exploit so much as it's just kind of hijacking the way it works. There's no harm here. Don't worry about data loss or anything like that.
Right.
And unless one of your friends is really, really set on buying the parts and building one of these boxes, this is not something the average person even needs to consider.
That's right. He calls it the Rickmote controller. Hilarious. James, did you get a chance to look at that?
No, I did not realize there was a video until about 15 minutes before the show started, and it was a 19-minute video. Had I known what was going to transpire before the show, I would have just watched it. But, so I'm excited to watch it. I read the article, and it's hilarious that he hijacked these people and rickrolled them. So I will definitely be watching that video as soon as this show's over.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. He doesn't actually show the rickrolling. So it's not funny in that regard. It's funny in the regard of the way the guy put it together, because he's like, so it's not bad that I can get in, but I can, right? And he was just kind of like, he shows that. I don't even remember if he shows the video or not, but it's interesting. It's just an interesting way that he hacked it, because Google made it so simple to set up, and that's why it's kind of hijackable. And he talks about how it would be hard to fix, but I think it would be easy to fix. You just have to add an extra step. But the fact that it's so easy, that extra step would become inconvenient, because you have to reach behind the TV and press the button or something. So, anywho, fun stuff. So next up, and I think, let me see here. So we have a news story about the battery bug, and basically, this battery bug, and I would say that if you've experienced Chrome on Windows over the past couple of years, people have made mention of this for a long time, that Chrome is either power hungry or uses a lot of memory or is constantly crunching, so it's going to be a battery hog. And it appears, according to Ars Technica, that this is there's a fix in the works. And people are kind of heralding this as like a finally, because of the amount of battery drain that Chrome can do on a machine. So Craig, did you get a chance to look at this?
I did, and I actually swapped out the link on the show notes because the link you had just called it a bug and they didn't go into any sort of detail, whereas their article is very lengthy and it actually explains why this quote-unquote bug exists. The bottom line is it's not a bug. It was originally intended as a feature, and the way it worked was back in the day when the web was plug-in heavy, we had things like Flash and Java that just absolutely ruled the web. Those plugins were already battery drainers. So Chrome, in order to kind of keep parity with them, had to have that same setting. As we've kind of filtered the plugins out of the web and we've switched to things like HTML5 video, Chrome hasn't changed yet, whereas the other browsers have. They've kind of downplayed their timeout setting. So this change is being investigated, but it'll probably happen. And we're talking milliseconds here. And basically it just boils down to how long Chrome keeps your processor active, which can translate into battery performance over hours and days. But honestly, it's not a bug. It's probably an oversight is probably the best way to describe it. Originally, it was just what every browser did, and the other browsers have just adopted to the new settings quicker, whereas Chrome has kind of remained the same for a more stable user experience. But given the current climate of the web, I don't think any user is going to notice any performance issues by decreasing that timeout setting. So I'm looking forward to the change. I don't really use Windows Laptop a lot, but I know a lot of people do. And one other very important thing to note, according to the way the setting is configured, this was never an issue if your laptop was on battery power. It only ever activated if your laptop was plugged into an AC charger. So the reports of people saying that Chrome just eats their battery while their laptop's running on a battery, it's a separate issue. That's not what this is. So there's a lot of misinformation about this. But the Rs article is very well written.
Yeah, I did have an older article, which to be honest, but yeah, I'm with you. So the other thing that was in the news was Dell, and Dell had actually a couple of interesting things pop up. One, they're coming up with an i3 variant, just like Acer did, and the reviews of the Dell are really, really good. And my ultimate concern is going to be the battery life. But I think, James, you're the one that I think you said this week. You said, is the i3 the new Haswell? Because we know the Bay Trail is going to be a lesser CPU for the Chromebooks. So your comment, I think it made a lot of sense to me. If they can keep the battery life, whether they're clocking it down or I don't know what they're doing, but if they can keep the battery life where it was, maybe the i3 is the new Haswell.
Yeah, it'll be hard to tell. A lot of things are going to affect it, like price. Craig's mentioned before how the Haswells were pretty subsidized pretty heavily. Not sure if the Bay Trails are going to be subsidized in any way, or the i3s or whatever. So in order for it to be the new Haswell, it would have to still be cheap, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I haven't looked at what the prices of these new i3 Chromebooks are going to be, but I'm just wondering if, when I said the new Haswell, I was just kind of wondering if i3 was going to be the new standard. If we're going to start to see the majority of the new Chromebooks coming out start to come with i3s or not. If the battery life is okay, that would be exciting. The i3 in the Windows world is kind of the bottom of the barrel. At least on the display models, they pretty much just show all the i3s, 5s, and 7s, and if you get an i3, they're always trying to push you to the i7, but in a Chromebook world, an i3 is almost overkill a little bit. I think it'll be, which I think is okay. I prefer a little bit of an overkill. That way you're not running into any performance issues rather than something that's almost 100%, if that makes sense. So I don't mind. I kind of hope the i3 is the new Haswell. I would like to see a lot more Chromebooks come out with the i3 and see what the performance is like, see what the battery life is like, and hopefully it won't drive the price up too much.
Price and battery are going to be big things. Craig, i3, is it was James's comment about the Haswell correct? Is it replacing the Haswell?
I don't know if it's I don't know if I would say that this soon on, but we do seem to be seeing a lot of i3 models between Acer's model and now the Dell model. Um, it may just be that those companies are now to the stage where they're looking to release a more top-of-the-line device, which is what the community's been begging for months. So it's a win-win. But I don't know if that will become their mid-range or if this is just kind of an addition to the product line. Time will tell.
I agree. I was actually trying to find this other article that I thought might have been up, but I couldn't find it. It I don't know if
And I think we might have lost John, unfortunately. My assumption is that we're still live, so we're going to go ahead and continue the conversation, if that's okay with you, James.
Yep. Still says live on my screen.
Same for me. Okay, so we're going to assume John's thought was along the lines of, I don't know what news story he was looking for, but I think he generally agrees. We've discussed this earlier before the show, and we're on kind of agreement that the i3 is a good thing, whether it's in the Dell model or the upcoming Acer model. The three of us are not opposed to more powerful devices. I don't think anyone in the community is opposed to more powerful devices. Moving on to the next bit of news item. The next bit of news is that Dell is now starting to accept Bitcoin. And that's actually a really big deal. And it looks like John might be coming back. But yeah, Dell has started to accept Bitcoin for a lot of their online orders. I believe it's only for US shipping at the moment, though, so that's one quick drawback. But more Bitcoin acceptance in the general marketplace is always a positive thing. For the viewers that listen to our show in the past, we've discussed things like Bitcoin Chrome extensions, how it's essentially money on the internet. It's the internet currency. So I think John's back, so I'll go ahead and hand it back over to him. But yeah, it's a positive thing.
it is a positive thing. Thank you very much, Craig. Sorry again. I'm having network difficulties. I'm gonna go throw my brand new router at Micro Center later today. Not that it's their fault. It's a Motorola, and it's probably not even their fault either. Maybe I might give them a call. I don't know how I'm gonna work that because it says don't return to the store first. Anyway, so sorry I dropped off. I'm very frustrated by the dropping off, guys. So, Craig, thank you again for taking that. So Dell accepting Bitcoin. I've got a number of articles linked. Dell's blog talking about the fact that they wanted to be kind of a future forward, give you the opportunity to pay with the internet currency, like Craig said. So I thought that was pretty cool. James, I know that you're not into the Bitcoins, right? You haven't dove in yet. But what are your thoughts on a company such as Dell and many others getting into the Bitcoin marketplace?
Well, yeah, I'm not really a Bitcoin guy, but I think it's actually honestly been catching on more than I thought it would. I'll be honest, when I heard about it, I thought it was silly, and I didn't think that it would catch on very well. But it obviously I was wrong. With Dell accepting Bitcoin only for U.S. transactions, I think that kind of takes away one of the biggest advantages to even using Bitcoin in the first place. So hopefully they'll kind of open that up a little bit in the future. Maybe they're just testing the waters or something. I don't really see an advantage to me logging on right now and buying a Dell Chromebook or Dell anything with the Bitcoin as opposed to U.S. dollars. But I think it's cool. It's geeky. I'll probably never get into it, but it's fun to talk about and hear about. And the fact that Dell is jumping on board. They're not the first large company to jump on board. You guys probably have a good list of all the bigger companies that are getting on board with it. So it's just fun and exciting to read about. It's almost not, to me, it's almost like it's not even real. Like these nerds are paying each other with ones and zeros online, and it's like, but it's actually happening, and people are doing it. and the process is kind of cool. How you go about mining the bitcoins if you look into that, and so it's all fun. I'll never probably ever buy a Bitcoin, but it's still fun to read and talk about.
Never say never, James. And actually, this actually segues into our Bitcoin in pledge drive, right? Okay. The Practical Chrome show, right, is all about things Chrome, and also really about the new things of the web, the future of the web technology. We talk about that a lot here on the show. We talk about 3D. We talk about the virtual reality. We talk about when we talk about Google I/O, all of that was about web design and bringing the web forward, right? And I think that's one of the things about Practical Chrome that I've always enjoyed, is that the fact that yes, it's about Chrome, but Chrome is one of those leading open source browsers that's that along with Mozilla and the others are coming forward, open source, working with the community, working with standards, and making things better for the web. And I think what Craig said about it being the online currency, the web currency, makes a whole lot of sense. So what I wanted to do is we need, if you can hear Craig, he's got this awesome microphone, right? He doesn't hear it, but I do. And when I go to put the MP3 together tonight, I'm going to hear it, and I'm going to be like, man. And what I would like to do is I want to have a pledge drive for the fact that I'd like to get a microphone for James and I as well. James, for some odd reason, always sounds good. I don't know what that is. I mean, it's just his mojo coming through, but he's always on the Chromebook. So, but it's always worked really well. I've been on a couple episodes. I've been not on this mic, but on the mic on the Chromebook, and I sound terrible. Maybe it's the room. I don't know what it is. But I wanted to have this pledge drive be, and I wanted to have it be Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to become more and more popular. You have the companies like Google, like 1-800-Flowers, like Dell, like Dish Network, like Budweiser. All of them are working to get the Bitcoin to be more popular because they're starting to take it in. Now, we are starting this crowdfunding drive here at Practical Chrome, and we need that new gear and your help for it. And we're taking Bitcoin as our primary support vector because it allows you to know more about Bitcoin. As we go through the drive, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, where you can find out more about it, and show you the process via the pledges that we actually receive, right? So down the road, we'll show you transactions that we've received, and then make some live transactions. You'll actually see what we can do is we can share our screens, and we can just transfer Bitcoin from one place to the other, and you'll actually see it appear, so you can actually see how it kind of works. And this will hopefully, by doing it live, it'll dispel some of those mystery and misconceptions that are out there. We have partnered with Coinbase. They are a new sponsor, and also I've reached out to the G+ community called Bitcoin, right? And they're a really large G+ community, just like the Chromebooks community and the other Chrome OS communities out there, where I've reached out and I've gotten some assistance with any Bitcoin needs that I have. So it's just another place to get more information, but definitely come here as well. And if you'd like to make a pledge and already have Bitcoin, please just head over to practicalchrome.com, click the Bitcoin link on the right-hand side of the page, kind of where you can subscribe to the different feeds like iTunes and go to G+, things like that. There's a little Bitcoin logo. You click that, it's going to actually send you right over to our Coinbase page where you can make a pledge to us, make a little donation, give us a little tip, a little Bitcoin tip. But if you want to help and find out more about Bitcoin, go ahead and head over to Coinbase via our referral link, all right? And that's going to be at bitcoin.coinbase.com. And we'll of course tell you more about Coinbase here just in a second, so that you'll know all about it. So again, that's just about a little pledge there, and hopefully striving with some Bitcoin. Actually, Coinbase will actually allow for dollar transactions too, but I want to kind of to be Bitcoin, so again we can show everyone online. So with that, let's go ahead and head over to head over to Coinbase, right? So Coinbase, we'll do that one. Coinbase. What is Coinbase, right? Coinbase is Bitcoin safe and easy. Did you know that more and more companies are accepting Bitcoin? Has someone offered you a Bitcoin in exchange for goods or services? With Bitcoin's popularity growing more and more, having a well-known source to purchase, sell, and keep your Bitcoin is important. Coinbase can be your easy and worry-free source for Bitcoin and Bitcoin transactions. Coinbase allows you to send Bitcoins to others, buy new Bitcoin, in U.S. dollars, and then of course just exchange it back out for US dollars, right? So if you're concerned about getting into using Bitcoin as a currency, then Coinbase is really your best first step. With some of the strongest security, stronger than most banks, Coinbase makes using Bitcoin incredibly safe. Go ahead and, again, visit Coinbase today through our referral link to let them know that the Practical Chrome podcast actually sent you, and you can do that by going to coinbase.practicalchrome.com. There's actually two links. There's coinbase.practicalchrome.com or bitcoin.practicalchrome.com. Both of them will send you to the same spot, and definitely do that. And that'll actually help the site as well, help Practical Chrome as well, along with the pledges. So, again, thank you to Coinbase for sponsoring the show, allowing us to have them as a sponsor. Has been pretty darn cool. So, now we're going to roll into the main. What do you think, guys? Are you ready for the main? Craig, you ready for the main?
I am, John.
There's that mic. That's what I'm talking about. James, are you ready for the main? Are you ready for the Linuxness of it all?
Yes.
Okay, here's the thing. I got my Linux handbook. It's a phrase book, right? So this allows me to make general Linux commands. Recently, James actually threw some Linux on a Raspberry Pi, which is like awesome. So today's episode is about sideloading another distribution. Now, this is a very heated topic. I'm actually a vanilla man myself. I do not run Linux as a side on my machine. I don't, and I've just opted not to because I do have a Linux machine at home if I wanted to really dabble. So I don't, and I know that Craig doesn't. James, I think you've tried once and you looked at it, but the reason I wanted to bring it up to everybody is because no matter what forum you go to, and you ask the general question, hey, I want to buy a Chromebook, but I have to do ABC. And a couple people will be like, oh, well, Chrome OS can't do that, or there are some workarounds. They give you some workarounds, or talk about an app in the web store. But then there's always the guy, the guy or girl, who's like, oh, wait a minute, no. This is what you do, and they draw you out in this. I need you to go to this website, get your computer into developer mode, and the list gets extensive, and then it becomes like this box that you have to not use as a normal Chromebook. There are caveats, there are things that happen that are hard to describe and hard to understand when you do them. But they do allow you to put a full-blown distribution alongside Chrome OS, or not, or you actually just boot separate from Chrome OS. A couple different ways to do it. That'll give you full OS functionality. So I wanted to bring this up. I wanted to bring on Crouton. I wanted to also take the challenge of installing Crouton. I know that Ben Schoon from iTech Triad, he recently installed Crouton because he wanted to get Minecraft working, which is one of the, I mean, like, that's almost as big as Skype at this point. Is, oh, I want this inexpensive laptop because I want to run Minecraft for my kids. I mean, like, that's actually a common thing. My sister and her kids and her husband would love to do that, but they can't. So not with a Chromebook anyway. So that's why I want to bring it up, because every time someone asks the generalized question of, hey, I want to be able to do ABC, there's always one person who is trying to be as helpful as possible, but they are breaking you away from Chrome OS. So I want to talk about what is involved if you want to do that. So that's my huge intro. We can't really go into what Linux is or a Linux distribution. Chrome OS is actually a variant slash, let's say it's a variant of a Linux distribution, so to speak. So you could kind of put it like that. And so what we're going to be doing is sideloading another operating system that would use part of Chrome OS in one, and then another one actually uses its own kernel and everything. It gets a little bit technical, so I don't want to go too much into that. Just understand that you're putting another operating system on Chrome OS that is more likened to Windows and Mac. So if you're not into the Linux world, they probably found that offensive if you are, but it has all of the libraries and things like that to code in C, to code for an Android device, all the things that some people want to do. So now first, before we continue on, I want Craig to step up with his awesome microphone. That's right. I think he sounds good. James, seriously, don't you think Craig sounds good with that mic?
Sure, John.
Can't hear it. Hey, you guys are killing me. So Craig, you even listen to podcasts like The Bugle and stuff, and that they use really good. You could hear how crisp, and you sound good. I'm just saying. Anyway, Craig, let's segue to Mr. Tummelson and the warnings, the pitfalls of going with a Crouton install, a Kubuntu, or even what's put forth by the Chromium OS developers, which is just activating the shell, the full shell. What are the pitfalls of doing something like that?
Sure. Well, the first pitfall is you just start randomly complimenting people on their microphone status. But to the larger picture, by enabling developer mode, you lose a lot of the security features that come standard on Chromebooks. Chromebooks have this amazing feature built in called verified boot, which means that every single time your Chromebook boots, in that 8 seconds it takes to get you to the sign-in screen, it does a full system scan to make sure that none of the core file system has been modified. If you're familiar with how viruses tend to work on other traditional operating systems, they get into your core file system and they change things. They hold your files ransom, or they spy on you. Chromebooks are designed to protect you against that every single time they turn on, unless you turn that feature off by entering developer mode. The big issue, though, is that if you disable that, it's not just that a virus could modify your file system, it's that if someone steals your device, takes it away from you in a public place, they now have access to your entire file system. That includes, they could decrypt your data, in theory. They could access your saved passwords in Chrome. They could get your cookies and your, which would allow them to log into other websites as you. So there's just a lot of information there that should be protected and is protected for the average user that never touches developer mode, that instantly vanishes the moment you decide to enable developer mode. And that is a prerequisite for installing any sort of Linux on your Chromebook, unfortunately. The other big warning I have is just that Linux is very powerful. And I don't mean to scare people away from Linux, but it is very, very versatile, and it's not super user-friendly depending on which distribution we're talking about. So for a user that's never really played with Linux before, you're kind of diving into something that may be a little over your head. Things do go wrong, things do break, just like they break on everything else, but they break in just slightly different ways, and you may not be familiar with how to kind of fix them on the fly. So if you're not super computer savvy, I would definitely kind of direct you away from something like this, just because it's going to be an undertaking. You should be fairly knowledgeable about Linux before you go into something like this, just because things will break, things will happen, and you need to, at very least, learn how to not panic the first time something goes wrong. And that's something that everyone that eventually ends up as a mainstream Linux user has to go through. It's that moment of panic where you have to say, I broke it, I broke it, I broke it, how do I fix it, how do I fix it? Luckily with Chromebooks, you can always pull out a USB device and make a recovery stick and erase everything and go right back to that safe, protected environment. But you should still use a little bit of caution, and you should know what you're getting into. And then the very last thing I have to say is that in some rare cases, and this is very rare cases, but I feel like I should mention it, by installing unofficial software, it is possible that you may face hardware damage because of it. And I don't mean to scare you, because this is very, very rare. But things like installing a Linux distribution and having something go wrong may cause your fan to spin and spin and spin at the highest speed until it wears out early. Things like that can, they won't break your computer necessarily, but they can cause certain parts to fail more quickly. But again, it's very unlikely, but it does happen occasionally. It is something you might run into. So it's just like whenever you hear about people rooting and installing custom mods and ROMs on their Android devices, there's no warranty there if you're going to get involved with that type of thing. Just like this. You're using software as is. You should have some knowledge of what you're doing before you do it. But we're going to go over what we find with the experience next week, and there should be some good things to report, but I will stress that know what you're getting into. When it comes to computers, you should always be familiar with what you're getting into before you just dive into it. But maybe I'm just too cautious. I don't know.
No, that's quite all right. Okay, because I totally agree with every single thing that you said. It's just like the whole Chromecast being incredibly user-friendly and then it's supposedly hackable, but yet it isn't, because that's not a hack. That was really just finding like that one feature and going in and just, you're not stealing any data, you're not doing anything. Well, Chromebooks have that wonderful, easy workflow to them where you can just sign in. It's all encrypted. They've worked on all the security in the back end. They're using the Linux kernel, which is really what Linux is the kernel. They're using that as their engine, so to speak. But they've locked everything down with that verified boot, like Craig just said. And it's so simple. If you like simple, this is not the road you should take. I think that's the large takeaway here. Is that if you say to yourself, oh, I want to run Skype, the native client, and I asked everyone on Reddit, and everyone said, no, it's true, it doesn't run. Really sorry. You might need to buy yourself an inexpensive Windows machine or find something on Craigslist. And then that wonderful, helpful person says, well, you got to get Crouton. Here's the link to the instructions, and it'll install Ubuntu on there for you, which is the Linux distribution, the most common one out there for the side loading. And we're going to find out how easy it is next week. But like Craig said, Linux is easy, especially with Ubuntu, right? It's very straightforward. There's a package manager, there's apps to install. But because it's not what you're used to, you do need to carry a towel and not panic, right? So keep that in mind. James, I want to ask you, today you loaded a Raspberry Pi with the Raspbian, which is the Debian, which is another distribution source or distribution of Linux. You loaded that on today, and you actually had to do some Googling, look up some commands. What are your thoughts on the fact that people are saying, let me take this Chrome OS that boots in 8 seconds, is great, has all this web technologies built in, it's secure, it's safe, and they're like, yeah, but I got to run my Skype, I got to run my Minecraft, I got to do Android development on it?
Well, first of all, my advice would be, whenever dealing with Linux, don't ever run any commands that Craig tells you to run. That will only end in a bad day. But the good news is he can probably help you fix it if that happens. I think Crouton and Kubuntu and these things, they're not actually a terrible idea if you know what you're doing. Putting Crouton on your Chromebook could be the difference between having to buy another device and not having to buy another device. If you really need to run Skype for some reason, or you really need to print without an internet connection for some reason, you don't really want to go buy another device to do that, you could just throw a Crouton on your Chromebook and use Chrome OS 90% of the time, and then push a little short key, hop over to Crouton, play your Minecraft, whatever, come back to Chrome OS. So it's not a terrible idea. It is rather involved. Like you said, Linux itself is pretty simple. Putting it on a Chromebook, not simple. If you can read, you'll probably be okay, because you're basically just typing all these commands, and it doesn't really matter if you know what they do, as long as you trust the source where they came from. You'll be fine, probably. But if something doesn't go right and you don't know what you're doing, you're kind of lost. I got lucky putting Crouton on mine. Nothing went wrong. I just typed the commands that the Google said I should type in, and they worked. And I had Crouton, and I looked at it, and I didn't know how to use it, so I got rid of it and went back to Chrome OS. But my biggest beef with putting Crouton on a Chromebook is when people make it sound simple. Somebody says, how do I get Minecraft on my Chrome OS? So I was like, just put Crouton on it, man. Just put Crouton on it. Oh, okay, let me push the Crouton button, and now I can play Minecraft. Like, it's kind of a pain in the ass to do that. And so if you really need it, I say go for it. But like you guys said, you bought a Chromebook for a reason, because it's simple and it's secure and all that stuff. So I myself will not be putting Crouton on the Chromebook because I don't need those things, but I can totally understand if somebody needs those things that Chrome OS does not yet do. Putting the Crouton, it is kind of convenient. One of the methods involves just pushing a shortcut to switch between Chrome OS and Crouton, so that's kind of cool. You can easily hop back and forth between the two. So there's definitely some benefits, but just tread carefully because if you're not familiar with Linux and terminals and command prompts, you're going to feel kind of lost.
I do agree with that. I really like Linux because of the fact that it is the open source community is so large, and to see what people have done in an open source environment and what they've built. I mean, like I just love Linux because of that aspect, right? And Linux again is just the kernel itself. It's just the powerhouse, the power horse below at the very bottom, the kernel. And this actually runs on, all Android devices run Linux, right? Many things run Linux in the back end. So when we talk about the distributions, you're talking about the open sourceness of it, and this is just my whole Linux rant. It is easy if you get a Linux distribution that you're putting on your laptop, and you get something like Mint or Ubuntu, or I mean, there's even like far off ones like Integros or something like that, and you have all these different distributions. Realize how many people have come together to do this. So it's really a fascinating subject. So if you're into Linux, I mean, if you want to know more, definitely check out Linux, and I think if you're into that kind of thing and you're like, wow, yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd love to wipe my Windows machine and just put Linux on it. Go out there and find more information out about it. It's an awesome thing. But sideloading onto Chrome OS, next to Chrome OS, is a little bit tricky. And you are doing it on a device that needs to be able to run Chrome OS and be a Chrome OS device. And now you're asking it to do something wholly different. And you have to follow the steps, like James said, which can be kind of tricky. So it's a minefield, right? But it'll allow you to run some of those things that you want. So that person in the Reddit forum, or not forum, but on Reddit, making a comment, or the person out there that in on the G Plus, and they're like, you go to one of the communities, and they're like, oh yeah, this is the part where we talk about Crouton, and that's what everybody's talking about, because they like to do that. They like to tinker. It's up to you if you want to try it, but it's not something that I would ever walk anyone through, especially if they love their Chrome device the way that it is. But we're going to try it, and we're going to come back and tell you all about it. I feel like I don't know where to be on this. You know what I mean? It's a tough subject. Craig, I don't know. Is Craig still there? Craig, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You're all video for me. Maybe it's my internet. But anyway, I mean, you're all audio for me. So which is also excellent. Your audio is really good. I might only have you on audio, but you look really. Your audio is awesome. Anyway, so Craig, I kind of want to have a final thought on this from you, because you really have the moment to tell us what the pitfalls were, but I didn't really get an understand. Where you were on like the. I know that you're a vanilla man, right? But would you recommend it to somebody? I mean, like literally, like if without knowing them point blank, you're not the guy in the forum or on Reddit that says, I know you have to have Skype. Go buy a Chromebook. Go buy a Chromebox. Just go ahead and hit it up with Crouton. You're not that guy, are you?
Absolutely not. My view is that Crouton and Ubuntu are fantastic tools, and I'm truly glad that they exist, but they exist for a certain type of user. And that type of user is not the average user. It's the people that need to do Android development. They got a Chromebook Pixel at I/O, and they're looking for a way to do Android development on it because it's such a nice piece of hardware. It's people that need a specific set of applications. I don't think just needing Skype is really enough to justify it, especially not to an average user. But if you're the type of person where you like to keep up with how Linux is changing, or you are familiar with Linux and you see the value to it, and you don't mind the trade-offs, the pitfalls, or I guess you don't mind taking the training wheels off, it's a good option, but it's definitely not for the average user. I would not be comfortable with more than 5 or 10% of people using this, truly. I don't think it's something that should be recommended just as kind of a catch-all solution. I think that's a horrible idea. Just because the education it takes to understand what you're doing to your device is not something that can be accomplished in the scope of a Reddit post or a Reddit comment in general. So I think it's far too easy to just say, oh, install Crouton. That's not the solution, John.
I'm right there with you. Now, I don't have the link, but there is actually an interview with Francois Beaufort where he talks about loading on Crouton. Right now, but this was literally for development, right? So he's already in developer mode, he's a Linux proponent. He loves it, so he's all into it, and he talks about it from a developer standpoint. So it's not something that's so outlandish, but I agree with. I think another reason I brought this up was because it's my stance too. If someone says I can't do ABC with a Chromebook, I don't say, well, yes, you can. Here's Crouton, here's the link, go do it. So that's kind of my stance too. So really quick, let's go over the 3 options, right? And I think what I'd like to do is I'm going to load Crouton. That's what I'm going to do. Craig and James, I don't know if you'll have time or not, and if you want to dive into either the other ones, or if you'd like to just not possibly get into trouble with your device. It's up to you, but I'm gonna take the challenge. I'm gonna take the Crouton challenge. But what Crouton does is James mentioned it, where you can hit a couple keys and you're flip-flopping between 2 operating systems. That's what Crouton is, because you're basically sharing. It's like a beast with 2 heads, and Chrome OS is over here, and then over here you've got Ubuntu. And you can just hit a button to go between the 2. So you're looking at 2 different screens, either Chrome OS, or if you hit a button, boom, you're on Ubuntu. That's Crouton. So it's running side by side almost, and then you're cherooting into this other environment, and it has a Windows X environment. So then you can see you can see the GUI, you can see the screen that looks just like it's a windowed environment. The other one is Ubuntu. Now Ubuntu is Ubuntu, which again is a distribution of Linux. Very friendly one, and you're booting from separate storage. So you actually have to reboot your Chromebook to get into it versus the other one where you can hit a key and you're already kind of in it, right? So it's not a live. You do have to get out of Chrome OS and then get into Ubuntu. So there's that aspect of that. So that's kind of a weird thing, and it's probably not even as user-friendly as Crouton. Then the final one is actually a link on the Chrome OS wiki, which is maintained by a network of Chrome users. And this actually goes over how you can turn your Chromebook, your Chrome OS, remember that Chrome OS is built on top of Linux, the Linux kernel. And what they've done is that they've built an operating system on top of it, a distribution, so to speak. And what they've done is if you do some series of steps, you can basically be in the Linux of Chrome OS. You'll actually have gotten down and opened up all the developer tools, and like Craig said though, with the security issues, you've opened the machine up a little bit more from a security standpoint. Like it's now Linux, so all the ports are open. It's not Chrome OS. It's more of a vanilla Linux version where everything's up to you. You have to maintain the security. You have to do all of the tasks that come with a Linux distribution. Unlike when you boot up Chrome OS, everything's kind of done for you, and it works beautifully and really fast and easy. This will be a version of Chrome OS that boots up and it looks good, but you have that underbelly where you can kind of tweak things and do what you want. So those are the 3 different steps. James, if you had the option and you were to try this again, and I don't know if you're going to take this challenge or not, but if you were to take this option, which one do you think you would try? Would you do Crouton again, or would you try the Ubuntu, the separate boot up, or would you go with let's get into Chrome OS, the down and dirty?
Well, that third option would do me no good because I would not know what I was doing. It would come down to if I could know ahead of time which one I would like which one would be more user friendly once I got into it. I'd probably go with that one. Being able to switch back and forth is nice, but if I found that was easier to use, I wouldn't mind shutting down and restarting to get into it, shutting down and restarting to get back into Chrome OS. So for me, it would just come down to usability, I guess, because they are the Crouton and the Kubuntu. I've only done one of them, and I'm fairly certain it was Crouton that I did. They are different, right? The UIs, they're not the same exact thing. They're like
No, I
two
think
different
they're
types.
both based on Ubuntu 12.04, which is actually an older distribution version. But they're both based on 12.04, I believe. So it would look almost identical to Crouton. Should anyway. We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, I'll probably, if you're doing Crouton, I might see if I can find the courage to go ahead and try to put Kubuntu on it, and then maybe we can see if there's any differences or not. But if they really are that close to the same, I guess long term I would prefer Crouton just for the ease of switching back and forth. I don't know what the benefit would be in that case then to doing a dual boot as opposed to the switching back and forth. But I'm gonna half semi commit to doing a Kubuntu and just to see what it's like.
There you go. Craig, what about you, sir? With the three different options, the Crouton, the Kubuntu, and the shell access with verified boot and auto updates, which one are you thinking about?
I have the most experience with the fourth option, which you didn't mention, which is just using, basically you enable developer mode, and then you set the flag so that you can use Control-U to boot from any USB device. So you can put Linux Mint or Chromium OS, or I don't know if you want to try Windows or something, in theory, and just boot directly from the flash drive. And I've done that time and time again with Chromium OS builds. Of course, now we've got the Canary channel, so you don't necessarily need it, but for a while there, when the Canary channel wasn't official, or at least it wasn't as documented as it is now, thanks, Kenny, it was great. You just pop in a flash drive, hit Control-U, and boot it. So that would be my suggestion, because then you've got your Linux build on a separate device. You can plug it into another computer, pop it into your desktop machine, pull it up there. I mean, that's where my experience is, and it tends to work well. You don't get the benefit of Crouton where you get to switch back and forth quickly, but I've never really had the need to switch between Linux and Chrome OS in a matter of seconds. I've never had that need. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm doing something wrong with my life, but I've just never had that moment where I say, I wish I could get it into Chrome OS right now. I've never had that. I don't know.
I'm with you. By the way, you sound beautiful. Even though you totally were like, there's another option, John. Let me, I realized you spent all that time writing up the show notes, and I didn't add the fourth option. I'm just messing with you. I totally understand. See, but Craig, that's not fresh. That's not sexy. Like, that's not you doing something new. You've been doing this thing with the USB drives forever. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. I'll harass Craig later about it and see if I can get him to do some croutoning. So that's going to be the end of the segment. And next week, what we're going to come back. We're going to talk about it a little bit more. We're going to talk about Linux a little bit more. We're going to talk about Crouton. We're going to talk about Kubuntu. We're going to talk about this mysterious fourth option, and we will let everyone know what it's like. And I think me, Craig, and James are officially nerds, right? I'm the old one. James is the grumpy one. Craig's the smart one, right? We're the nerds, right? We are in it to win it when it comes to this kind of stuff. So we're definitely like the type of person that's like, oh yeah, you can do something fancy and like crazy and like, whatever. I'll do that. So and for me, I could read a tutorial. It's pretty easy. But we're gonna try this, and then we're gonna get it. But I wouldn't recommend anyone else try it if like you're like, oh, I heard on Practical Chrome that they got this 4 different ways that I can get into get this more robust OS. Again, the more robust thing irks me a little bit. Hold off. Let's wait till next week, and you can hear back from us. Okay. So that was the main. Now I do want to go over 2 applications that I came across this week in regard to the login segment. And and also the plus ones. We had some plus ones this week too. So the first one is send to Kindle. Why didn't I know about this? Okay, the reason I didn't know about it is because I didn't have a Kindle. My sister gave me her Kindle. I wish I had it down here, but it's one of the black and white liquid ink paper ink e-ink. What's it called? I can't remember. E-ink. It's got an e-ink display, right? So it's got the black and white display. It's not the one with the glowing. Whatever. I've always been fascinated by that. I've never owned one, and so when she gave it to me like 6 months ago, I was like, oh, whatever. And I went to Gutenberg.org and downloaded a bunch of free books and just to have them. And I think I've read a couple chapters here and there, but I didn't really pick it up much. But it does have an experimental web browser. It's beside the point. The point is, you can go to a blog and use this send to Kindle, and it will wrap the blog post in a Kindle readable format, right? And then send it directly to your Kindle. What? So again, with the articles that we had this week, some of them I was like, oh man, I really want to read that whole blog post, but it's really large. Let me just send it to the Kindle and it's a Chrome extension. Bob's your uncle. Good to go. Super cool. Craig, do you have a Kindle?
I do not. I have a Nexus 7, so I get my books from Google Play Books.
And James, what about you, sir?
I have a Nexus 10 with the Kindle app on it, so it's almost a Kindle.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, if you have a Kindle out there and you're one of those type of people that you have, your RSS reader, your aggregator, and you're like, man, I really want to read this article, and I want to read it with my Kindle, and the e-ink, I don't know, it's just me. I really, really enjoy it. So check it out. It's really cool. And the other one is really cool too, and that is Pictocast. This was actually brought up by the OMG Chrome team, and this is how I found the link, and they kind of showed me what it does. And if you know anything about the Chromecast, you'll know that we've been kind of remiss with our whole being able to post photos to the Chromecast, things like that. Now some integrations come along down the road, but this will actually allow you to put pictures up on your TV that you want to see without having one of the already installed apps that might be kind of difficult to use, or maybe you don't use like the Google Photos or anything like that. So you couldn't this is a really cool app that allows you to do that on the Chromecast. So James or Craig, I don't know if have either of you tried that. I don't know if you just nod your head if you
Which app? I didn't hear it.
Pictocast?
No.
No. Craig, Pictocast?
I just cast the tab.
Oh, that's a good point. You make a good point there. But Pictocast looks really cool. And there's actually it's got like a freemium service where you can do 30 minutes. But it basically allows you to send a specific slideshow to the TV, which I think is pretty cool. So I thought that was a great app to look at. And thanks to OMG Chrome for that one. Now, the plus ones, really quickly, are headed out to two people that I wanted to thank. One was Avatar X, actually. Avatar X is actually he's the moderator of the Bitcoin community out there. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to them because he was super great with me, and he's definitely out there offering them as much as information as possible about Bitcoin, so definitely check that out. Big Nate 84 over on the podcasting community in G+. He's a huge AV guy, right? Audiovisual. He actually has a podcast as well. I'll put the link in the show notes. And he actually offered up some great information about how to podcast from a Chromebook, and I want to thank him for that. And then finally was Chuck Woodard, who we had an intelligent debate about the ARM versus Intel argument that we had last week. And then we ended up having this debate about thin client versus full client that Chrome OS is, things like that. That I think was a great conversation. So I want to thank Chuck Woodard for that. So that was really awesome. Awesome stuff. Good stuff. I liked it. It's good to have that type of debate. You know what I mean? It was good. It wasn't just a bunch of shouting or someone dropping the mic when it wasn't really time to drop the mic and walk away. But anyway, so that's going to be it for the show. James, where can people find Mr. Welbus throughout the week?
Well, you can find me on the Google Plus, usually in the Chromebooks community. also the Chrome for Business community, and definitely if you're interested in Chromebooks, um, check out Chromebook.reviews. And none of that content, very little of that content is actually mine. It's just mainly reviews from other people, but it's a good place to check out reviews if you're thinking about buying a Chromebook. Nothing about Crouton on that website, though.
I'm with you. And Craig, what about you, sir? Where can everyone find Mr. Tumbleson with his Barry White voice on that microphone?
Listeners that haven't gotten sick of John can find me on Google+. I use my real name, Craig Tumbleson, and you can also find me on Chromeup.com.
There you go. And of course, you can find me. I'm John Oliphant at thepracticalchrome.com. Be sure everyone to check out Coinbase. I want to thank them as our new sponsor, and of course, Effective Group, the effective-group.com. Two great sponsors that are now with us. Of course, Effective Group's been with us for quite some time. We've been super great having them, and then of course now we've got Coinbase with making the Bitcoin safe and easy. And again, if you get a chance and you're into the Bitcoin or you want to find out about Bitcoin, definitely check out Coinbase at our referral links, bitcoin.practicalchrome.com. And then again, if you're looking to get a website built and get online, definitely check out effective-group.com as well. They are a great resource with one-on-one assistance, making your website great. So thanks again to our sponsors. Thanks again, gentlemen. Again, you can find me on practicalchrome.com, John at practicalchrome.com. I'm on the Google Pluses, so you can hit me up, find out what I'm doing, which is mainly working as much as I can. Trying to do the Pod 5. Pod 5 has dropped off the radar, and I really want to make it happen, but it's terrible. So many things going on, and that's pretty much it. I do want to say one more thing on a personal note, just for my homie out there. We're losing a friend at work. He's leaving us, and it's really sad. So I just wanted to say goodbye to Mr. Abhijit. He's been great, and we're gonna be very sad to miss his daily presence in our daily lives. So there's that, and again, everyone, thanks for watching Practical Chrome. It's been great hosting the show this evening. James and Craig, thanks for joining me. Thanks for coming on as usual. You guys are the best with all of my jokes about the Barry White voice. I'm telling you, the microphone. You don't get this, man. You don't get it. You sound great. James, you freak. I don't know why your microphone or you just sounds so good already, even though you're using the standard microphone. But anyway, thanks, guys. You guys have a great rest of the week, all right?